She was my coworker for 14 hours. Then she showed up at my door at 11:40 p.m. At exactly 11:40 p.m., someone knocked on my apartment door. I almost ignored it. It had been a long day, and I was exhausted after spending 14 straight hours at work with the same woman I barely knew. But then I heard her voice from the hallway. "Daniel, please. I need your help." I froze. It was Emily. My coworker. The woman who had spent the entire day sitting across from me, pretending everything was perfectly normal. I opened the door. She stood there with a small overnight bag in one hand, her hair slightly messy, and an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Fear. "Emily?" I whispered. "What are you doing here?" She looked behind her before stepping closer. I didn't know where else to go. I glanced down the hallway. "Is someone following you?" She shook her head. "I don't know." That answer scared me more than anything else. I moved aside. "Come in." She entered quickly, and I locked the door behind her. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. 14 hours earlier, Emily had been nothing more than my coworker. We worked in the same department but rarely talked outside meetings. She was quiet, professional, and always seemed to have everything under control. That morning, we'd been assigned to the same emergency project. 14 hours. 14 hours of coffee, spreadsheets, deadlines, arguments with clients, and barely enough time to breathe. During the afternoon, I noticed something strange. Emily kept checking her phone. Every few minutes. And whenever a message arrived, the color disappeared from her face. Around 7 p.m., I finally asked her, "Everything okay?" She forced a smile. "Yeah. Just family stuff." I didn't push. At 10:15 p.m., we finally finished the project. Everyone left. Emily stayed behind for a few minutes, staring at her phone. Then she looked at me. "Daniel?" "Yeah. If someone ever asks you about tonight." She stopped. "Never mind." I laughed awkwardly. "You're making that sound very mysterious." She smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I hope it stays that way." Then she left. I thought that was the end of it. Until 11:40 p.m. Now she was standing in my living room. "Tell me what happened," I said. Emily put her bag on the floor. "My brother called me." "Is he okay?" "He said I needed to leave my apartment immediately." "Why?" "He wouldn't tell me." She took out her phone. There were 3 missed calls from him. Then one text. She handed me the phone. The message was simple. "Don't trust anyone from the office." I looked at her. "Does he think someone at work is dangerous?" "I don't know." "Did he say anything else?" She shook her head. "His phone is off now." I sat down. Emily remained standing. Then she whispered, "Daniel, you were the only person from the office who didn't ask me questions today." I frowned. "What does that have to do with anything?" Everyone else already knew something was wrong. I stared at her. "What?" She sat across from me. "Last week, our company discovered that someone had been stealing confidential client information." My stomach tightened. "And?" "The investigation pointed toward our department." I remembered all the strange meetings we'd had recently. "And you think someone is setting you up?" "I don't think." She swallowed. "I know." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A message appeared. She should not be there. I showed Emily. Her eyes widened. "They know." "Who?" "I don't know." Another message arrived. "Ask her about the file." "What file?" I asked. Emily stared at the screen. Then she slowly reached into her bag. She pulled out a small black flash drive. This. I stood up. What is it? Everything. She explained that earlier that evening, she discovered evidence showing that someone inside the company had been sending confidential files to an outside buyer. But before she could copy the evidence, someone entered her office. She grabbed the drive and left. Her brother had apparently found out and told her to disappear. Why come here? I asked. She looked directly at me. Because you're the only person I trust. I didn't know what to say. Then we heard something outside. A car door slammed. Emily stood immediately. Turn off the lights. I did. We moved toward the window. A dark car was parked across the street. Someone was sitting inside. Minutes passed. Nobody got out. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. A man's voice said, "Daniel, this isn't your problem." I said nothing. You have 5 minutes to convince Emily to leave your apartment. The call ended. Emily looked at me. What did he say? I told her. She closed her eyes. I'm sorry. For what? For dragging you into this. I shook my head. You didn't drag me anywhere. I grabbed my laptop. If that drive contains evidence, we need to get it somewhere safe. Emily stared at me. You believe me? I've spent 14 hours watching you today. She smiled sadly. And you're terrible at lying. For the first time that night, she laughed. We connected the drive to my laptop. There were dozens of encrypted files. But one folder wasn't protected. Inside was a spreadsheet containing names, dates, payments, and company accounts. At the bottom was one name. Our department manager. Emily whispered, I knew it. Then we noticed something else. The latest payment had been made that very evening. At 10:48 p.m. While we were still at the office. Which meant the person responsible was probably still there when Emily left. We immediately contacted the authorities and sent copies of the evidence to a secure location. 20 minutes later, headlights appeared outside. This time, it was a police car. The dark vehicle across the street disappeared before they arrived. Emily finally exhaled. I can't believe this happened. I looked at the clock. 12:23 a.m. Neither can I. She picked up her bag. I should probably find a hotel. You're not going anywhere tonight. She looked at me. Daniel. I mean it. Stay here. I'll sleep on the couch. She smiled. You're really different from everyone at the office. Good different? Very. The next morning, investigators arrived at our company. The manager was arrested before lunch. The evidence from Emily's drive exposed a much larger fraud operation involving several employees. And somehow, the strangest part of the whole story wasn't the investigation. It was what happened afterward. A week later, Emily knocked on my apartment door again. This time, it wasn't 11:40 p.m. It was 6:30 p.m. She was holding 2 coffees. I thought I'd return the favor, she said. I smiled. Does this mean you're not here because you're being chased? No. She handed me a coffee. I'm here because I wanted to see you. I looked at her. After everything? She nodded. Especially after everything. 14 hours at work had been enough to change both our lives. But that night at 11:40 p.m. was when I realized something. Sometimes, the person you barely notice during an ordinary day can become the person you trust with everything. And sometimes, the knock at your door isn't the beginning of a problem. It can be the beginning of something you never expected.